Welcome to Models of Integrity, a new video documentary by Luke Sterra Leadership Foundation. I am Father George Ehusani, the Executive Director. We have produced this documentary, Nigeria, Models of Integrity, to showcase good, upright Nigerians who are struggling to live lives of integrity in the midst of what some people consider a rotten environment. An environment where every day we are bombarded with news of monumental corruption. Corruption at the lowest levels, corruption at the highest levels. Young people are today assaulted with scandals of their leaders or ex-leaders. Scandals relating to indiscipline, to corruption, to impunity. In that environment, we want to demonstrate that there are examples of virtue, there are examples of integrity, there are examples of people who have lived their life and have continued to live their life by principles, people of character, people who know that righteousness exalts a nation, but that sin is a reproach. We have many such people, from left to right, from north to south, from east to west, Igbos and Yorubas and Hausas and TV and Ishekiri and Ibira. We have good Nigerians, exemplary Nigerians, models of integrity, but they have not been well celebrated. They have not been given recognition. Luke Sterra Leadership Foundation has begun a series to showcase Nigerians that are struggling, that are working hard, not without sacrifice, not without persecution sometimes, to live by truth, by justice, by honesty, to work hard and only earn an honest living and touch no resource that is not their own, that they have not worked for. We have many such Nigerians. We want to be showing this to our young people in order to give our young people hope that all is not lost. Everyone is not rotten. We want to give our primary school young people, secondary school young people, our students in the universities, young graduates, let them know that all hope is not lost, that Nigeria can be redeemed, especially because we have these shining lights. We have these beacons of light in every profession, in every sector. Christians and Muslims who are using their Christian religion and their Muslim religion to live lives of integrity as nurses, as teachers, as administrators, as civil servants, as corporate executives. They are using the best moral principles of their Christian faith or Islamic faith to live lives of integrity, and we want our young people to emulate them. These are the people we call models of integrity. I am grateful to the MacArthur Foundation that supports the production and the free distribution of this documentary, and it is part of the projects that Luke Sterra has been running along with other people to promote integrity in our society. In the last few years, we have produced booklets like this, Christianity and the Challenge of Corruption in Nigeria. Christianity and the Challenge of Corruption in Nigeria, showing all the scriptural texts and commentaries where every act of corruption we practice in this country, everyone is abhorred and condemned. Also, we produced Islam and the Challenge of Corruption in Nigeria, showing texts from the Hadith, texts from the Quran, texts from Islamic scholars that condemn all acts of corruption. We even produced a curriculum and facilitators manual, a curriculum and facilitators guide to teach people how to use their religions to promote integrity and to fight corruption. Finally, we produced an integrity pledge, a pledge that everyone that comes for our courses, our training programs at Luke Sterra, takes this pledge at the end of the course in order to live lives of integrity, and we make them ambassadors of integrity. So, the Models of Integrity documentary that you're about to watch is just one amidst a whole gamut of programs to promote integrity in our society and teach people to take leadership role. May the Lord use this documentary and several other productions like this that are coming up to transform our society, to give hope to young people, to make our country a better place that all of us will love to leave behind a good legacy of justice and peace and integrity that we would like to leave for our children and children's children. God bless you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for making me cry.
He did brush away some tears way into the interview. Such are the emotions that well up in the executive director of Connected Development, Hamzat Lawal, each time he broaches the subject of corruption and its devastating effect, particularly on society's vulnerable persons. At 34, Hamzat is one of the youngest but most prominent anti-corruption activists in Nigeria. He remains passionate about his fight against graft, and his pet project, Follow the Money, has exposed him to temptation from individuals keen on concealing their nefarious acts.
I've been bribed before. The first time I was bribed was in 2014 with 100 million naira when I was running the 9.2 billion naira Clean Cook Stove initiative. I was given 100 million naira cash, not transfer, not check, but the cash in Ghana must go, just for me to keep quiet and look the other way. In 2019, I was bribed with $2 million just to keep quiet about an oil and gas FPSO project that was ravaged with corruption. And of course, the two bribes, I turned them down because the world have taught me that for you to be successful is ideas. Ideas actually rule the world, not material things, not wealth, but ideas. But ideas that brings value to your life and the life of the people around your community. And how are you touching lives? How are you impacting people? I know billionaires that they don't give charity, but I know poor people who, with even their little income, they still take a percentage and use it for charity.
Listening to Hamzat's story readily elicits an inquiry into what has created the staunch anti-corruption crusader he has turned out to be. He grew up mainly in the Nigerian capital, Abuja, but he recalls that though he is a dedicated Muslim, he went to schools that were largely Catholic. They never interfered with his Islamic beliefs.
In Abuja, I was enrolled in the Catholic nursery and primary school. At that time, no one really talked much about what religion or what ethnicity or what background you belong to. So my parents enrolled me to the Catholic school, and then I was shaped as a young child about, more. So the Catholic school taught me more about being a good person.
Hamzat humbly submits that his father was a driver with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. By this definition, the man clearly wasn't a part of elite society in the strict sense of the phrase, but he practicalized getting his children to appreciate very early in life the injunctions of the Holy Quran by discouraging them from showing acts of greed.
Back in primary school, I remember one fateful day my brother brought home a toy. And according to him, it was a toy that he collected from his friend, who they were playmates. But my parents are always conscious about what we bring home and ensuring that what they're able to afford for us is what we appreciate and utilize. And I remember my father having a conversation with my brother that day, sitting him down and explaining to him that he does not need or have to collect his friend's toy to bring home to play with. And if my dad cannot afford for him that toy, he should do with what we as a family can afford. And he explained to us that contentment in life is really important.
Hamzat was raised in the ways of ennobling religious teachings. In his adult life, he cannot for 1 minute imagine himself departing from those injunctions. He actually has an easy assessment of life on earth.
And I tell people out there that money, material would never make you happy.
Some persons who know Hamzat Lawal speak about him eloquently.
Hamzi is so selfless. He's somebody who would want you to be at your best all the time. And it's another thing working with somebody and then the person is always reviewing your performance. That's who Hamzi is. Hamzi wants you to strive for perfection.
I'll point to the fact that, Hamzi is too nice, because, I mean, it's crazy how you would want to share your hard work, with other people. And you're saying to them, hey, I don't want you to work under me forever. Go ahead and start up your organization. And we're committing to give you the technical support it requires, to be able to hold your own government to account.
Life will continue to drop its chimes, and as each day dawns, this rather enigmatic young anti-corruption crusader will keep sharing with his equally young staff why it is necessary never to allow greed or graft to take over society. Thanks to, so to speak, the faith clinic that created a path for him to walk through life. She wears a smile with the ease required for putting on a favorite apparel. On the business premises of Union Bank, Area 3, Abuja, she mingles with junior staff in an atmosphere of shared official aspirations. Many things are at the core of what makes Sim Sambodaju the woman of integrity she is today. But she is quick to mention an early foundation in life as contributing more than anything else in life.
I was well brought up to fear the Lord in the Christian way, and I was taught Christian values. And I really am happy to my parents because that has really shaped my life.
As cameras trailed Mrs. Sim Sambodaju into the bowels of a branch office of one of Nigeria's foremost banks, there was no hint she was the boss in these quarters. She practically sailed through the offices in happy humility. Her character has obviously affected the disposition of her staff, something she acknowledges.
I have a large team, and I've been able to teach them my values of integrity, of always doing the right thing, saying the truth, and knowing that everything you do unto God, right? Because when I was posted to Abuja, I remember very well, my friends were like, wow, you're lucky, you're just going to be your own boss and so on, and then you can decide to either be at work or not. But I told them something and I said, remember that I work for God. Wherever I am, I'm going to be very accountable and I'll make sure I do the right thing. And that has really helped me. And despite the fact that I've been away from the head office, but you find out that all my senior colleagues, everybody relates very well with me because I've kept, to that promise. I'm always available. You can reach me at any time. And then I always make sure that I contribute my quota to making sure that, the bank services are up and running. And then I also make sure that I train my team members, you understand me, to be people of integrity, to let their yes be yes and their no be no.
Rising to her current position of a senior IT professional at Union Bank hasn't been without its challenges. She recalls one aspect of the job that has tested her integrity. It was a case of her demanding for fairness to a colleague on her team, and also about the bank going ahead with engaging a vendor she considered not good enough. Though her warning was ignored, it turned out that she was right about the consultant in question.
That particular vendor was not the best vendor for that job because they didn't really have the knowledge that we needed, for that particular installation. But they would not listen to me. You understand, there were two vendors, but I made it very clear. Anyway, because somehow they had their way with that other vendor, they insisted. And then the vendor took us to South Africa. We went on the training. I had my senior colleagues, but like I said, somehow I was leading the team. Before we traveled, the bank now said that they were going to pay for our Esther code and everything. Except that my other colleague that I said they should bring in, right? Because his name was initially not there. So we now traveled to South Africa. We got there and then they paid 5 of us. The bank paid 5 of us. So I now said, okay, the company, bring the money that is due for everybody so that this other colleague that you added will be paid. Nothing was brought. So I had to sit down again and I called all my other colleagues and I said, everybody should bring down money from the Esther code we collected so that we'll give the other colleague that doesn't have. And I tell you something, up till today, they never gave that money because of course they had their issues. You know, they were sorting my senior colleagues, right? And my senior colleagues would not want to listen to anything, but I was so happy that I never gave in. I didn't take a dime from them. And I helped, you know, my other colleague that, you know, came on, and he was happy because he really learned quite a lot from that trip. And as mentioned, when we came back, they couldn't really help us to deliver on that solution.
This IT professional, whose job is basically focused on user support, insists that even at the risk of death, truth should never be compromised.
It's good to be somebody that is, you know, you have your values and you hold strong to your values, because no matter what happens in life, you understand me, you'll be able to put your head straight and walk anywhere, and you're confident that you did not compromise. And I bring up my children that way, you know, because growing up, my dad would always tell me he's a disciplinarian. So he had different, you know, kobokos or whatever, depending on what you do, you know, but he doesn't really use it, but he keeps it there. And, you know, but he will tell you that when you do wrong, always just say the truth. And when you say the truth, he will call you and he will talk to you. He'll say, well, because you've said the truth, I'm not going to, you know, lash you and I'm not going to beat you up. But remember, say the truth. Even if you're going to be killed, just say the truth.
Mrs. Sim Sambodaju is appreciated by her colleagues in the office, 2 of whom said why.
As I'm talking to you, I'm a Muslim. And the other colleagues that wanted to join and work with her were Christians. But to my surprise and amazement, she didn't look at religion, she didn't look at sentiment, she didn't look at ethnicity. She just took what she thinks will suit her purpose, what will support her work. And that is how she selected me out of my other colleagues.
Even she can be very, very strict on the job, very, very strict on the job. Her strictness boils down to the fact that she wants you to do the right thing. She wants you to do the right thing. And also, within the job, she's a good advisor, like I said, and that is one of the very great qualities of a good mother. She advises. She advises a lot. If you try to falter, she'll draw you back, tell you you did the wrong thing, and this is what you're supposed to do.
This graduate of Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University in Bauchi, Nigeria, is so convinced about the efficacy of life rooted in a sound religious upbringing that she has kept verses of the Bible to help her raise children she and her husband can be proud of.
Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and every other thing shall be added unto you. And I tell my first daughter that if you do this, it will guide you in life, you know, but make sure you are for God first of all. Once that is it, then he will guide your path. So the second one is that trust in the Lord with all your heart and never lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make straight your path. And that is it. Then for the last boy, his one is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Not by your own will, through Christ. You understand?
Life continues for this icon of integrity. For her, each day is a gift worth cherishing. The people of Okpila in Esako East local government area of Edo State, Nigeria, no doubt have many illustrious sons and daughters to be proud of. But if their son, Dr. Godstime James Kadiri, a deputy director in the Nigerian National Space Research and Development Agency, were a book, they would be talking about a bestseller.
With regards to my academic background, I'm a special scientist. I had my national diploma from the Yaba College of Technology, and then I proceeded to the University of Lagos for my first degree, Bachelor of Science degree in Surveying Engineering from the Faculty of Engineering. And then I also had my second degree, Master of Science in Surveying and Geoinformatics, also from the Department of Surveying and Geoinformatics, University of Lagos, and then proceeded to the University of Missouri in Kansas City, US, where I obtained my PhD in environmental remote sensing. From there, I proceeded to the Harvard Kennedy School of Government in Massachusetts, where I served as a doctoral research fellow. And then from there, I proceeded back to Nigeria.
He had earlier introduced himself as the son of Mr. and Mrs. James Kadiri, a parentage he is very proud of. He had early tutelage from them about good morals dipped in a strict life of faith.
My dad, 29, I still remember vividly well. And before then, of course, we were Catholic. I was a Catholic, but at some point I was asked to stay with my auntie in the village, and she got married to a Muslim. So I was attending church on Sunday and then going to mosque on Friday.
So, Godstime James Kadiri could be said to have been effectively cornered by God early in life. He doesn't regret the heavenly ambush, though.
I'll begin by referring to my faith. My faith as a Catholic has inspired me so much to see the work that I do as a vocation, not just as a work that is done for the salary that is earned at the end of the month, but as a vocation, as a service, as a call by God to serve.
He is not batting an eyelid when it comes to the question of adhering to his creed. This special scientist believes that vanity upon vanity, all is vanity, and pursues a life that extols the wonderful art of nature. He mentions fault lines in present religious practice.
The true religion is it's lacking. People have focused all their attention in this world and this world alone. If people realize that at some point we will have to leave this world, then perhaps the attitude will change. And that is one thing that keeps me going, that no matter how long I live, definitely one day I'll leave this world. So the focus has moved from heavenly virtues, heavenly focus to earthly bound focus.
He advises others not to budge when it comes to living out a life of faith, one that shuns corruption.
No matter how long you live, someday, one day, we will all die. And after that, we have to give account of how we have lived here. So if we have that at the back of our mind, then whatever happens to us while we try to live a life of integrity will not matter. It will just be secondary, because we know that our focus is not on this world alone.
When the cameras were turned on two of Dr. James Kadiri's subordinates at the Nigerian National Space Research and Development Agency, what they said was not totally unexpected.
He's a man of integrity, justice, fairness. In his life, you can see what we call cross-cultural communications embedded in him. He's a man he's not full of nepotism. I've worked with him for over these years. I can vouch for him. He doesn't have any hidden thing. He works with people freely.
He has been a first-class student from Unilag, and I've seen that first-class attitude in almost all spheres of his life. Yeah, even when you talk about religion, it's God first. When he started to train you, he trained you to be first. So that first wasn't just in academy, that first cut across a lot of wide spectrum.
What Dr. James Kadiri is interested in is saying no to corruption and quietly thanking God that he had an early childhood of faith that showed him how and where to walk.
My parents raised me in a way that they always reminded me that your name is God's time. And if your name is God's time, there are certain things that you should not allow to be associated with you. So that has also helped me to make sure that I strive to live a decent life, to live a life of integrity.
It's the story of special scientist Dr. Godstime James Kadiri. It's a story worth telling anytime. Azizatu Sani is a producer with Radio Nigeria, and her program Street Children has found a corner in the hearts of many who listen to it. She has indeed found a good platform to exercise her accommodation and tolerance for other persons in the world, particularly children. Azizatu had all her upbringing in the Nigerian capital, Abuja, and as she announces her deep Muslim faith to whoever wants to know, she doesn't hold back the fact that her early religious life started from Christian roots.
My background is built on that, my Islamic teachings and orientation by my parents, but especially my mom, and then examples by my father. But like I said, I schooled in Abuja, but then I also schooled in a Catholic school, a primary school. My primary school was Madonna International Nigerian Primary School. So I know a lot about the Catholics and their worship, a way of worship. And that has made me respect other religion because my mother told that line to make me respect other religion.
As earlier mentioned, Azizat produces a children's program which seeks to rescue minors from the streets and also drops a few morals on how they should grow. She glibly points out how Islam has helped her achieve a healthy relationship with persons in other faiths.
As a Muslim, we are taught to love our neighbors the way we love ourselves, just the same way the Christians are taught. We are taught to respect people and be just to people. We are also taught to acknowledge people for who they are and respect their boundaries. So those things have really helped me mingle with people. When I was in university, in my school, in my room, in the hostel, I was only Muslim in the midst of 10 female colleagues or female co-hosts in the hostel there, and we lived together because I respect everybody and I understand. When you go to church, say, how was service? And when I come back, they'll ask you, oh, did you go to the mosque today? I say, no, I'm off Salah. That means when the woman is in her period, we don't go to the mosque. So they understand that. So there's that understanding. And I lived in the midst of my friends and co-tenant in the hostel. Well, my best friend in university was the Catholic, Rita Galadima. And so we even won best clique in our set.
Azizatu's treatise on the ideal interfaith interaction was lucid and focused. Since she lives in a society that is challenged in terms of morals, The question of how to stay sane and retain integrity in the face of declining religious and social values was presented. It is difficult, but resolving quite early in life the path to walk really helps, as Azizatu explains.
Because of my religious background, I was able to understand at that very young age what was right and what was wrong. And I was able to toy a path for myself. I remember before entering school, I asked God for 3 things. I said, 1, I don't want to fight with anybody. 2, I don't want to go against authorities in school. I don't want them to call me in front of assembly and they will lash me. And 3, I didn't want to go out with anybody in school or date anybody in school because it was a mixed school, both male and female boarding house. And so that really guided the way I lived in school and the kind of friends I keep and my way of doing things. I was actually different from others because I just was more focused on what I wanted to achieve. And by the grace of God, yes, I achieved those things. I didn't date anybody in school because I deliberately didn't want to. And I felt it was not something that I needed at that time in my life. And it really helped me put my religious line into perspective, my academic life into perspective, and what I really wanted to achieve because I knew I had challenges at that stage. I mean, at that stage, as at GS3, I didn't know how to spell right. I knew the answers, but to write it down was quite difficult for me. And so at that point, I just knew I had to focus more on self-development, both spiritually, education-wise, and knowing who I really was. And my religion really played a part in that.
There is a constant temptation among members of a production crew where one individual is pushed by greed to pocket monies given out to the entire group to offset inconveniences in the course of their work. Azizatu found herself in one of such situations. She talks about it.
During the course of my work, we interviewed a personality. And afterwards, the personality called me to handle the money that I would give other production crew that came around. And if the temptation was there, I was like, okay, if I want to share, let me just take my own and just tell them this is what they gave. But then I kept, my spirit was not just settled for it because that's not who I am. I'm someone that is very truthful. I just say this is what it is. I say whatever it is, let me just present it the way it is and let us share it. And so I had to fight that thought of presenting what it was not. As I just went straight to them, I said, okay, they've sent so amount to my account. I think it was 80,000 naira, and we're just 3. So what I could have done was just take 40 and give 40 to them and tell them that was what they gave. And they would both take 20, but I take 40. But then I understood the fact that they were the one that championed the whole, they started planning for the whole interview. I just came in the middle of it.
Azizatu got in the middle of it, and so didn't feel as entitled as those who planned the interview. That's a noble way of telling oneself the truth. An individual like Azizatu might be scoffed at by those who live by the belief that if you can't beat them, the best thing to do is to join them. But virtue would always reward itself, while the truth would come out eventually. One colleague of hers, Ibrahim Shaibu, has a few words of salute to Azizatu's resolve to be and stay different. And we quote,
I have known Azizatu since 2013. She simply personifies the virtuous woman. She is gentle, disciplined, hardworking, and highly religious. These attributes have earned her so much respect, not only among her immediate colleagues, but people in the entire radio house as well. Her self-pride has instilled in her the discipline of not being carried away with material things. All these attributes could only have resulted from good parenting.
End of quote. Azizatu easily passes as one of the youngest among nominees for this edition of Models of Integrity, but lay this on the boldness of her responses and you'll just have to doff your hat for a woman of notable frankness and integrity.
When I was leaving the EDC, I shed tears because I've never worked with somebody that is so simple, that is so fair in character. I'm a Christian, he's a Muslim, but he doesn't, is not a, he doesn't criticize, he does, honestly, Ahmed Shekarau is a superhuman man.
Abuja Electricity Distribution Company AEDC staffer Rotimi Omishore couldn't have engaged a more superlative mood in talking about the general manager of business and strategy at the Nigerian Daily Trust publication. They were together at AEDC, and in spite of the many years of separation, Rotimi still has fond memories of Shekarau, whom he still calls boss. Such is the life of this model of integrity, whose character stands out in many senses of the word. Ahmed Ibrahim Shekarau sits in a cozy office in Daily Trust's Abuja office, oozing simplicity and straightforwardness, traits that are threatened in present-day living. He grew up among his Hausa kinsmen and harbors fond memories of his father's role in his early introduction to Islamic education.
He was a devout Muslim. Like I said, that was the primary reason why we were even enrolled in the Islamic school, even before we went into the primary school, to learn the Quran, to ensure that we grew up as people of faith, people of very strong faith, who actually display, qualities that are expected of devout Muslims.
One of those qualities is a life of honor that shuns corruption and all other vices that are inimical to society's growth. Shekarau has an explanation for the decadence plaguing the world and wants strict adherence to religious admonitions against lip service.
I personally believe that part of the challenges that we have today, is, emanated from the lack of knowledge in our society, because a lot of our people, we preach religion in our mouths, but a lot of people don't even understand what the religion teaches. Because if you actually appreciate, the teachings, for instance, for any Muslim, if you appreciate the teachings in the Quran, there are so many things that people do that they can't even go near doing them. So, religion, fundamentally the knowledge of religion, is the background, is the foundation for everything I believe that, I emulate today.
Part of those beliefs is fairness and an unyielding recourse to strictness, if that is the avenue towards getting things done the proper way. When you come in contact with the Shekarau phenomenon, you just have to resolve in favor of doing it right. There is no alternative to this. Anyway, there are penalties if you don't.
When I started work with him, he told me, Tolani, no matter how close I am with you, if you put your hand in shady deal, I'm going to take illegal action. It's going to be formal. I'm not going to hide anything. He said, I am telling you this so that when it happens, you won't think I'm a wicked man.
Terse words about a man who readily displays a friendly smile, but is equally ready to come down firmly on anything that negates the decency of character which Islam has spelt out to him from childhood.
I know that for every action or inaction, of mine, I will account for them. God Almighty has said to us clearly that whatever you do, you will account for your actions. Whether, they are utterances or physical actions. So the fact that, look, this lady is my executive assistant, she does anything wrong and I close my eyes to that, I know that on the day of accountability, which, for me is much more important than anything I will either gain or, benefit from in this present world. That is, the fundamental basis.
Shekarau looks so simple in regular deportment. On the corridors of the Daily Trust office, he could pass for an officer on routine inspection since there are no airs about him. But that near childlike composure transforms into sternness if he considers that some individual has shown an act of corruption. Why does he seem so uncompromising?
I could compromise, to a little extent where it does not actually, lead to a compromise, on my own job and of course ultimately my own integrity. And why do I say so? For instance, somebody perhaps dips his or her hand in what does not belong to him or her, and this person is caught and he or she shows remorse. Okay, return what you've taken. We could temper justice with mercy by allowing you to go, but you have to return what you got.
Shekaro actually recalls an instance when his aversion to corruption was tested by a very pathetic circumstance.
I had a kid sister from my mother, and I said, look, one of the least, because I have come of age by then. I have other younger ones, but she's our kid sister. So I feel that, look, now that I'm working, I've come of age, I should take off the burden from my mother. So I brought her down to Abuja here from the village. Unfortunately for me, I couldn't pay for her registration fee when we got admission for her at Arabic, Girls College, Madala, which is even outside Abuja city center in Madala, in Niger State. I got the admission for her, but I couldn't pay 138,000. But here was I being offered, up to 500,000 to compromise, some part of my job. And I said, no, not, in my own life.
The man who turned down an unholy offer of 500,000 naira when he was in dire need of a little above 138,000 naira for his relative's enrollment in a private school eventually got introduced to a school principal who admitted his little sister on far more affordable terms. The likes of Ahmed Ibrahim Shekaro are not in the game of numbers when a head count of friends is conducted. But those who appreciate the gem are equally not yielding an inch in vouching for the man.
He's super fantastic. He's very honest. I'm not saying it because of this interview, but I'll put it to you. Simplicity is out of this world.
Life goes on here on the premises and offices of Daily Trust, and as the publication makes all efforts to adhere to credible journalism, staff in these quarters know that one of those they can count on for continuing believability is Ahmed Ibrahim Shekaro.
We started with 250 widows 11 years ago, and we were able to, God was faithful to his promise.
Little drops of water make the mighty ocean. Executive Director of Widows and Orphans Empowerment Organization, WIWI, recounting how one of Nigeria's foremost non-governmental organizations started out in the quest to bring relief to some of the most vulnerable groups in society. Dr. Josephine Ogazie Gwanu is a woman living between heaven's inspired kindness and philanthropy that is traceable to her solid Christian upbringing. She holds a doctorate in agronomy taken from the University of Ibadan in 2003. But at this meeting with widows in her church, she could have passed as one of the regular community women living a simple life in a simple neighborhood. She mentions her background.
My name is Josephine Ogazie Egwonwu. By the grace of God, I am a Nigerian born in Imo State. Mama!
But as these women jubilate over the activities of a woman who has brought succor into their lives as widows, there is need to point out that Dr. Ogazie Gwonu's philanthropy did not start from NGO funding. The woman was told by her father that she would lead women sometime in her life, a calling she eventually commenced from a humble circumstance. Now, this sounds simple, but it isn't. Dr. Ogazie Gwonu started her Succor to the Needy enterprise by, wait for it, robbing Peter to pay Paul. This sounds strange, doesn't it? The woman has a confession to make.
When I will get a consultancy or a job and they ask me to travel, I would say, okay, I would quote for car hire, 40,000 naira a day. And then I would suffer myself and I would collect the money, I would suffer myself and take public transport, maybe 5,000. I remember those days in Ibadan. So I will now have to write a receipt of 40,000 when really the transportation, I really struggled and suffered myself. So I used to console myself that I'm raising the resources I needed to help the less privileged, especially when I finish the assignment and I see the widow's tears wiped away. I felt I was doing the right thing. Then that day came, I had taken the taxi, 2,500 naira. I've written down 40,000 car hire. I was just about to write the receipt. I heard a clear voice. That was my experience. Stop. These resources that you are raising for widows, do you want to do it by yourself? Do you want to raise resources in your own way, or do you want me to help you to raise these resources for the widow? I said, Lord, I think it's better if you are the one that helps me raise these resources for the widows. Then he said, put down that pen. Don't write that fake receipt. That is, I was committing sin to do what is right, which the Holy Spirit convicted me. From that day, I remember clearly, I still see myself in the mirror, hearing that voice of God. I said, no, I will no longer do what is wrong to do what is right.
Some individuals work well sometimes when morality imposes circumstantial goodness on them. But for Josephine Ogazie Gwonu, as a child, there was fertile ground to grow up on. Good parentage facilitated a good upbringing, and a good dose of God in early life went a long way in pointing where her life should be headed.
And one of the significance of my birth was that the Reverend Sister noticed that during the war, male children were the only ones in the ward that were being born for a long period. So everybody in hospital was desiring that, would there not be a woman, a girl child? And that night, I came. And all the Reverend Sisters in hospital rejoiced. Wow, we have a lady. And one elderly Reverend Sister, German Reverend Sister, said, the significance of my coming means that I will be a woman leader after a long line of male leaders.
As beneficiaries from Dr. Ogazie Gwonu's efforts sing and dance in gratitude to God for giving them one who cares, a short list of her rather massive NGO activities will reveal that WIWI has supported and empowered 64,064 widows and intervened in 2,885 cases of gender-based violence. That's besides its efforts to lift orphans from misery imposed by harsh realities of life. As this woman of great faith in God told her story, she advises uprightness, noting that things started getting profoundly better when she stopped cutting corners and left it all to God to handle.
It's better to trust the Lord and do what is right to achieve your goal rather than help yourself through cutting corners, through doing things that are not right to achieve your goal.
Dr. Ogazie Gwonu took up the issue of decent persons being treated by society as if they are the ones who owe society an apology. She says it is time for men and women of honor to team up and resist attitudes that seem to ridicule goodness and noble behavior. The endorsement that follows the inquiry into the life of Dr. Josephine Ogazie-Egwonu is clearly gratifying.
She don't want anyone to lie. Anything lying, she don't tolerate such things. And she don't want tears to be coming out from anyone that is in need. I will pray for more grace and more inflow in her life.
The trail of succor to the needy continues for this unrelenting care provider. It's a demanding job, but Dr. Josephine Ogazie-Egwonu found out long ago that her faith-inspired assignment and creed of goodness were never ever going to be an easy trip. Beneficiaries from her Wiwi project wish her well. Dr. Ogazie-Egwonu has Providence to thank for thus far granting her heart's desires and fulfillment of purpose. It takes a child of humble memories to talk about parents of virtue, whether they are dead or living. If the child's father was an anti-corruption crusader, he would stand out from the crowd.
I remember that time he told me a story that the governor asked him to go and sink boreholes in his farm. And he said, Excellency, sir, I'm sorry. I don't have it in my budget and I cannot explain it. So I can't sink a borehole in your farm. He said, oh, go ahead and just put it under the committee. He said, sorry, I can't do it.
Igboan Okaisabo, CEO of the Lagos-based construction Kaiser Limited. His company is one of the top flyers in modern construction, and projects that get the Kaiser touch simply stand out. Engineer Okaisabo could have grown up to be anybody. That's from a theoretical point of view. But his parents had purpose for him. So they raised a child that feared God. The path he followed thereafter complemented the efforts of mom and dad.
It's important to live a life of integrity. My father lived up to 80. My mother is still alive today. She's 87. So they lived long and fulfilled and happy lives. So I grew up learning that telling the truth, doing the right thing, even when nobody's looking, living a life of integrity, being good to your neighbor is so important.
Okaisabo runs a foundation that has set for itself the task of raising young but well-groomed construction experts. He has faced challenges, lots of challenges, but in terms of resisting what's not right, he recalls a particular incident.
But the first one that I think really challenged me was in 1975 or 1976, so we're talking about 45 years ago or thereabouts. I was 9 years old, I was 9. And then to be able to get into a secondary school in Nigeria, you had to be 10. And like I said, I was born in November. So we're among the disadvantaged children because school started in September, and if you don't turn 10 by November, you will not be allowed to enter for that year. You have to wait one more year. So there were a few of us in our class who had a similar problem. And they said, you know what, that you could just go and swear an affidavit and change your age and you get admission to secondary school. And of course, everybody wanted to move on. We're in a hurry. I came home and I told my mom what some people had suggested in school, and I wasn't comfortable with it. And she said to me, Igboan, there's nothing to worry about. You shouldn't do that. That's the wrong thing to do. You don't go and tell a lie. If God wants you to enter secondary school, you will.
And true to the assurances from on high, What happened next was nothing short of a miracle.
We were two of us who were not yet up to the age, but we did so well in the exam that the principal of the school, Philip Davis, late Philip Davis, he was a World War II veteran, British man, went to Lagos specially to make a case at the Federal Ministry of Education that we should be allowed to join the school without us knowing. And then all of a sudden I got a letter of admission. How did that happen? Eventually we found out that both of us had a special case. They made an exception for us because of how good we were. So the truth is that, you know, God has a design for everybody. You don't have to tell a lie. You don't have to try and be crooked to get things. So I got into secondary school at the age of 9+. So that's my first experience dealing with integrity, and luckily I got the support of my parents. If my mom had said, oh, let's go ahead and forge a birth certificate or swear an affidavit, I would have gone ahead, but I would have lived with that life forever.
Train up a child the way he should go, and he won't depart from it. A summer school to teach children how to go about construction remains a major milestone in the activities of Igboan Okaisabo on the platform of Construction Kaiser Limited.
We came back and we decided to have a summer camp for children. We flew in children from around the country and of course from Federal Government College Warri also to teach them about construction, about engineering, and how they could join the profession. So we camped them, we flew them into Lagos, camped them for 1 week, taught them leadership, ethics, integrity, and then guidance and counseling, and then took them to construction sites. And I can tell you that at the end of the 1 week, these children were changed human beings. And it gave me joy.
We're taught on integrity, creativity, leadership.
I've learned that engineering is much more than I have ever imagined.
There's space for everyone in the construction industry.
Today's lecture, I know more in that safety aspect.
Now, what was the most important takeaway from that program? When you spend 1 week with children, and at the end of the 1 week they tell you, sir, what I have learned from this camp is that I can live a life of integrity in Nigeria and I can still get by. It almost brought tears to my eyes. Because it means that children can be taught the right way in life.
Okaisabo's life of integrity has not gone unnoticed.
Engineer Igboan Okaisabo is a man I've been with for the past 13 years. And with my experience and my professional experience in account, in finance, Engineer Okaisabo is our MD, a mentor, a man of integrity, a man that he believes in teamwork and also integrity, and also is a man that always kick against corruption and bribery. So this motivated me more to be more better person in the industry, despite the position of the organization in the construction industry.
Construction Kaiser has done a lot in my life and also the life of others as well. I could remember the program actually started in 2016, and it was very interesting. Like, I really gained a lot from the program. I learned about construction, which actually helped me while I'm in school right now. I'm being grateful to God that I'm part of those people that is benefiting from the program.
At the peak of her banking career, Hajia Mariam Ozioma Abedo was Union Bank's group head in charge of Kogi and Benue states in Nigeria's North Central region. She was also coach, North Central and Northwest of the bank. This icon of a decidedly virtuous life remembers that her father died in 1972 when she was only 7 years old. That meant that her mom, a devout Muslim, had a lot to go about alone trying to raise Maryam and her siblings.
It was my mother that trained us. She was from a strong Muslim home, and she is a Muslim. She's still a practicing Muslim. And then when we were small, we were made to go to Islamia as a child. And we have mosque just close to our family house, that once it is time for prayer in the morning, around 4:35, you see everybody waking up, going to pray. And in the morning, we say, go to Islamia. Sometimes we dodge because of maybe when they beat you, you don't want to go, or you don't know how to recite the surah that you are taught, and you'll be forced to go. We go.
She went to Islamia. Today, she is happy she did. But in addition to the Quranic injunctions she took away from Islamia, her mom made sure she inculcated in Maryam those morals which duty-bound parents impart on their children. The poor woman, however, later considered that the best thing was for her daughter to marry, so as to ease the burden of raising children. Maryam had no stomach for that. She ran away from home and eventually got admission into a tertiary institution. But gaining admission into a school had its implications. How would she cope with the cost of being a student? Hajia Maryam recalls a stage of life that toughened her for life's stormy seas.
I couldn't see food, to eat. I had to take food, what I saw, just eat. And I couldn't have money to travel. I had to stay in the school campus. I was the only one in the hostel, Congo campus hostel. Today I say hostel, we call hostel too. I was the only one for the 4 nights that students traveled for Easter break. So, and just like I said, I was passing. I saw the 3rd room after my own. I saw Akamu. You see mosquito, dead mosquitoes, flies. I just carried the Akamu, took it to the tap, pour water, pour the mosquito and all those away. Then I saw stove was there, sweet potato, and I cook, and that was what I ate for the 4 days, and I was very happy. And then by the time the owner of that room came, I went to her, I said, please, I saw some food here. I took it. I ate it, please. He said, you didn't travel? No, it's okay, no problem. No, it's okay, it's okay. And I was happy. Then, because what I do, there is this particular woman married, she was comfortable. I go to her, clean her room, cook for her, I eat, then I'll go to class.
Sometimes life indeed presents only the option of a rough ride. Hajia Maryam was able to go through it all because she received early religious instruction on patience and perseverance, but never to cheat or abuse herself in the process.
My mother told me that no matter what, don't ever go and collect money from a man, because you will incur the wrath of God. If anything the man says will happen, don't ever do it. No matter the condition, don't go and sleep with a man to collect money for whatever reason. And that there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. So that has been my guiding principle all along. So I didn't misbehave while I was there. I tried, So when I finished my diploma, I knew it was going to be difficult. So I now went to look for a job, and I got a job with Union Bank, where I started as a clerk and got to the position of group head in charge of Kogi Benue, and later coach North Central, Northwest.
Tough times don't last. Tough people do.
The first thing they consider when hiring is that integrity. That was the first thing before any other thing. So right from, I was nurtured to value integrity. So from home, then when I got to the bank, so that profession instilled that integrity in me also. It was an added advantage for me because I had it from home and this.
Why are some young ladies these days not taking after the likes of Hajia Mariam? The answer we got again labels the injunction of training a child in a way he or she should go.
Some of these girls we are talking about don't even have moral upbringing. And the number one thing is for parents to always teach their children some values.
Hajia's mom started inculcating those values in her by sending her to Islamia, where Quranic injunctions helped to mold her character early in life.
My advice for them is self-respect is very key.
Naturally, there is endorsement of the Hajia persona from very high quarters. Asuku Adaiza, the branch manager, Union Bank, Okene, says this of Hajia Mariam Abedo, and we quote,
Hajia Mariam is a virtuous woman. I thought I knew all about integrity, honesty, and diligence until I met her. She made me see a whole new side to it all, and to realize that honesty and integrity are a lifestyle, not just an act. I have known her since 2005 and have worked as her subordinate for 4 years.
You might want to think that Hajia Mariam retired somewhat early. Well, the lady has paid her dues. It is time to relax and thank Providence for values that eventually created a worthy Nigerian in her. The story of Abubakar Mohammed Babangida is simply awe-striking. The fact that he could not speak English was a near deterrent to asking for an interview with him.
My name is Abubakar Mohammed Babangida. I was born in Bauchi State, studied in Maiduguri under the tutelage of Malam Abdullahi, Mohammed and Idris in Kaduna, under Malam Isahab, and in Plateau State under Malam Hudu and Idi Maigoro.
The resolute educationist and Islamic scholar says he has encountered many situations that challenged his integrity. The school he established in the Plateau capital, Jos, has been burnt down 4 times. He recalls the support from the Emir of Kano in renovating the school. And then this.
Lots of situations have challenged my integrity. Most paramount is the one related to the school, which in the past has been burnt down about 4 times. The only help we received was from the Emir of Kano, who gave us some money to renovate the school. When the money came, a lot of people insisted we share the money. However, I stood my ground to do what was right, which was to renovate the school. This singular decision also cost me some relationships. After the renovation, the school was burnt down again and again, but we rebuilt it ourselves.
He says the Islamic foundation which he had from childhood helped him to become whom he has turned out to be.
The religious foundation which I had from childhood has helped me to become who I am today. The Islamia I went to from childhood helped me a great deal. I also started same from my house before we moved to the mosque. Parents who have seen the impact of this on their children keep bringing their children back to be tutored by me. Girls, boys, youths have all at one point or another been tutored by me before we eventually became a formal school. Sometimes, when issues arise in the community, they call for me. When people have problems, they seek counsel from me as well. These are some of the reasons why I have gained acceptance amongst members of the community. Also, because of truth and integrity, parents could entrust their children to our care.
He's proud to mention those who inspired him in life and thanks the Almighty for the Rainbow Coalition, which the studentship at his school boasts of. His school's curriculum has many courses, but Abubakar harps on the need to always teach young people right from wrong. Does he think there are still persons of integrity in Nigeria?
Firstly, the impact of the lives of my tutors under whom I learned, like Malam Idris, Sheikh Mahamadou Gumi, Malam Bao Mai Shinkafi, and other Islamia tutors that I have met over time, greatly inspired me to become whom I am today. What they did and how they did it birthed a hunger and passion in me to become and do the same things they did. Thanks to God, everything is going on well and people place so much value on what I am doing.
The proprietor of the school, Malam Abubakar Husseini, popularly known as Malam Babangida, has been known to me for almost 32 years now. Yes, our first encounter with him was when we were brought by our parents to learn the Holy Quran from him. Yes, as we were learning the Holy Quran, coming to school in the evening, going to formal education, primary schools in the morning. As time goes on, Malam has been instilling to us, the knowledge of the Quran, the knowledge of the religion, Islam. And since then, I've been going places with him.
There are quite a number of challenges, as I have said. I can remember a time when an incident happened in the school. A student was punished, and something went wrong, really, not as a result of the punishment received by the students or meted on the students by the members of staff. To our surprise, some security personnel were even brought down to the school in order to come, and our society of today, anything can happen. Of course, parents are too sentimental. Sometimes they support their kids or words blindly. So some security agents came down to this school in order for the member of staff that took that punishment to be arrested. And I can vividly recall Malam stood, despite the intimidations, I can say, despite the insistence of the law enforcement agents to even take away the member of staff for what they say questioning. This is just going to be with us for a while, and he's going to be back. And we all thought Malam was going to give into that, but never. And at the end of the day, that member of staff was not taken away of the school.
The school is responsible for tuition fees of students and children who lose their parents. Abubakar says their education should not be hampered by their sad experience. He advises those who want to live a life of integrity in the journey to a better life.
My advice to you concerns some of the things I did that helped me to become whom I am today, a person of integrity and truth, not a rascal. You need to gain knowledge. Knowledge will show you the way. When you know the way, you will keep the right company and won't live a rough life. Respect elders and those in positions of authority. Anyone who does these will have a good life. Peace be unto you.
She initiated and led the Oniru feeding program in 2020. The target was zero hunger, commissioned to bring succor to vulnerable persons in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. But the community-targeted effort of Ms. Ayotola Jagun, native of Ijebu-Ode, Ogun State, Nigeria, is just a little expression of the huge contributions to society by a woman who became the Chief Compliance and Governance Officer at Owando PLC. Under the program, 235 concerned citizens with the alias Humans of Owando came together to fund, feed, and protect communities in crisis. Ms. Jagun was brought up in a Catholic school and mentored by nuns. She said that gave her a good dose of God quite early in life.
The other aspect of my spiritual development came from my local church. So we lived on Calabar Street at the time, and just down the road on Addis Ababa was New Estate Baptist Church. And from a very early age, my parents were both Church of England. They had converted from Islam during their high school days, both of them. But they were periodic churchgoers. But one thing they did do was send us to the Baptist church every single Sunday, and actually developed a real passion and love for the preaching of the Reverend at the New Estate Baptist Church at the time, Reverend Bolarinwa, who, I mean, I loved his preaching. I loved hearing how he expounded the Word of God. So I would run away from Sunday school on the pretext that I was going to the toilet and run into the main church and just sit under his teaching. And so from the age of 8, I remember being in church one evening, and I would beg my parents to let us go to church in the evenings. And hearing him preach a very strong message on righteousness, and responding to the altar call and giving my life to Christ at that age. So from a very early age as well, I think the Lord was gracious enough to reveal himself to me.
That's a revelation that sharpened Ms. Jagun's sense of right and wrong and the need for integrity. Her father had a contributory role too.
We needed school fees paid, and I needed to buy some books. And I went to my father, saying, this is my list, this is what we need. And my father said, well, I'm sorry, I can't pay, I can't do anything now. And I was like, why not, because you always think that your parents, are providers, especially your father is a provider. He's always bought everything we needed. And I remember my father saying to me, well, I haven't paid my staff salaries. And I felt, why would you prioritize your staff salaries above us, your children? And he taught me a lesson that day, which has stayed with me for life. He said, these people leave their homes to go out to work, and they have put their sweat and blood into my business. And so I need to pay them at the end of the month, come what may, even if I have to borrow. They have families that they need to support. And until their families are sorted, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait. And I think that really challenged me as a person, because integrity is not just about not doing wrong in terms of what is obviously wrong, like not stealing, not lying. Integrity, I think, is also being a person of your word. And for me, my father was teaching me that if you've given your word to a group of people and they've relied on your word to deliver service to you, then they are entitled. You have to keep your word. And so for me, integrity very early on was about keeping your word.
At the workplace, Ms. Jagun found herself needing to drive the anti-corruption policy for her company. It came in the shape of her assistance in planning and moderating the United Nations Making Global Goals Local Business Africa 2020 Forum Anti-Corruption Breakout Session. She drops a corporate creed.
Where doing the right thing is not popular, we have to take a stand. We have to be willing, when we take a stand, to be judged according to that standard. And many times in being judged, be prepared to be misjudged, because a servant is not greater than his master. But I think you just have to also be able to stand on what you believe and not be moved, by what people are saying, not be moved by all the noise, and just know that in due season, you will reap the rewards.
A life of greed and graft has its implications. At the individual level, it subverts morals. Corporate corruption is just bad news at the level of governance.
It actually increases the cost of governance. It increases the cost of doing business. That is what corruption does. Because, and it becomes, therefore becomes unsustainable, which is what we've been talking about. So what I would say to people is, somebody might say, well, if I don't give a bribe, I won't get the job. There must be something else that you can do. And then again, it is, and this is where what we call collaborative initiatives come in, collective action comes in, where people working in the same industry, recognizing that there is a problem, whether it is to do with corruption, to do with bribery in a particular sector, can, under the auspices of a trade, an industry body, come together to deal with that problem.
Ms. Jagung, on her own, has a philanthropy that sponsors young girls through secondary school. She mentors them on how to become more useful to themselves and society. She has a recommendation on how a life of integrity can be sustained.
I think the more that we build a community of people who have integrity, who believe in a new Nigeria, a better Nigeria, then we will see that new Nigeria emerge, that better Nigeria emerge.
Those who know Ms. Ayotola deeply are proud of associating with her.
We're working to create a different society, a society where the reality isn't that corruption is rife. She has also worked diligently to ensure that we're sitting at the right tables internationally through the likes of the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the UNGC, and what we do is we're party to these initiatives, platforms, to see what other companies are doing, to see what other countries are doing, what are the learnings that we can take and we can bring into Nigeria and bring into a company like ours.
Ms. Jagan would go to any length to ensure that the right internal procedures and processes are followed. She will send you back if there are any anomalies, and she will ask the right questions. Ms. Jagan is devoted, fiercely devoted, to ensuring that leadership is accountable. And I think one thing that stands out for me is her devotion to service to mankind.
The executive director of the Abuja-based Center for Transparency Advocacy, Faith Osai Nwadishi, gives you an expansive smile as an important item of welcome to her office. She hails from Amai in Nigeria's Delta State and lives out a creed that treats transparency as the only viable option in life.
We grew up as a Catholic family. We were baptized very early. When I say very early, not so early, because I was already in primary 4 when I was baptized at St. Joseph's Catholic Church in Benin City. So I had parents who would every morning you wake up and every morning we wake up and say our morning prayers. I had parents who were very religious and very upright in their ways. Because my mother would always, when you're going astray, she would always give you one story in the Bible to say, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. And my mother, in her community before she died, she was well respected, even though she was a woman. They always would invite her when the truth needed to be told. So they will call her and say, her native name is Obiageli. So they will call her and say, Obiageli is here. She would always say the truth. Even if you have, given her, she knows that her next meal is going to come from you. She will look you in the eyes and tell you that this, what you have done is not right. This other person, this is where you have gone wrong. And so I grew up, with that kind of woman, understanding that you need to speak truth to power. You need to be upright in the things that you do. And that kind of helped me to a lot of principles that I grew up with and now form the kind of person I am.
Faith's mother said it the way it was, not minding whose ox was gored. This revelation about the assertive image of a parent in her childhood has truly rubbed off on Miss Nwadishi's sojourn in life. She speaks further on her parentage, rich in character and creed.
My father was so generous to a fault. My father will go an extra mile to help somebody and even walk, because he wants to help somebody. We grew up in Benin City where they knew him. His business name was Alan Harris. Everybody knew him as a kind person, from his home, his hometown, to everybody. There's no office my father will go to without leaving an impression. So he was a philanthropist by excellence. And so I had these two role models to kind of help me forge my life into adulthood.
A good number of children speak glowingly about their parents, particularly after such parents depart from earthly life. But Miss Nwadishi particularly extols her parents for a reason.
Because of those Christian backgrounds and foundations that they gave to us, it was really helpful.
No one's life is a bed of roses, and Faith's isn't an exception to the rule. She admits tough moments and drops a hint on the right attitude towards challenges.
I've been challenged. I feel I have been challenged because of the big faith that I have in God, and God has always seen me through. It's not that the challenges have not come, but each time I go back and say, well, my name is Faith. It's not by accident my parents named me Faith. It's not also by accident that God has made me so big, even though he says you need faith as small as a mustard seed. Mine is in my structure, and I always put that out. So my perseverance level is out of this world. You push me to the wall. I'm scratching the wall to see if I can actually get a way out of that. But at times you want to push back, you want to fight back, and because of your upbringing, because you believe that God will always find a way to get things done for you, you kind of calm down. You kind of certainly calm down because of that background that we have.
Faith kept repeating sighs in her revelations about herself. But beyond her physical frame, the allusion to sighs was more in the area of faith in God. On the all-important fight against vice, Miss Osai Nwadishi says,
I once had a situation whereby I was truly qualified for a position, to be given the position, but because I refused to do what other people were doing, I had two options. The option was one, either to pay or to sleep with the particular person so that you can get that particular job. Anyway, that happens often, and I'd rather walk away than pick the other option. But the good thing about it is that most times when I walk away, I see a kind of turnaround. All those that I walk away from find one time or the other, find that you are the most suitable person for that thing, and they come back to you.
Now, this should be a lesson to other women who might want to cave in to temptation. Like Faith, who was taught to resist evil right from the infant section of her religious faith, adhering to one's beliefs and convictions could actually touch the heart of the predators in one's life. Miss Faith Osai-Nwadishi's colleagues at the office spoke about her personality.
And she has been a honest person. She has been honest with us 100%. She doesn't hide anything from us. And she will give you guidelines on how to do them.
She's honest, so she doesn't need to paint things to get it done.
Faith has a parting shot in the shape of the benefits from living the life of integrity.
The first thing is that you have peace of mind, though. Peace of mind. You don't have to be concerned about security, carrying security entourage around you. You live the simplest kind of life. You are able to interact with people at low level. You are able to interact with people at high levels because you don't have any skeletons in your cupboard.
One can only wish Faith well for being a strong woman of faith. The Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Tapshack Entertainment Limited, Jos, Dorcas Bentu, is a lover of arts and culture. Everywhere you look in her office is a study in that which is beautiful. The beauty of nature, which she has worked to bring out in members of her troupe of entertainers, is replicated by the insistence on propriety and decent behavior, which she picked up at youth from a family that simply worked at being totally Christian. What does she understand by integrity?
When you know the foundation that you have and you know the belief or the faith that you have in God and you think of the consequences of your actions and how negative it will be and how it can or it had the ability to destroy your future completely. I chose to go the other way around. And as I said, growing up, living in Nigeria, of course, you're faced with all kinds of situations, particularly when, you work in a public office and jobs or contracts come in, there's always that temptation for you to inflate, the figures or play around with financial situations, for your own benefits, quite tempting. And integrity to me does not necessarily mean that you are perfect all through. But when you make a mistake and you own up to it and you are able to say, look, I was wrong here, or this thing was wrong, and you change from doing that and, taking the right decision or doing the right thing, I think that in itself is integrity.
Born into the family of Professor Luka Bentu from Mungu local government area of Plateau State, Dorcas Bentu is the second among 5 children in the family. Dorcas practically grew up in Sunday school, which, according to her, formed the foundation of her Christian beliefs. She was mentored by her literature teacher, a British missionary. These memories mean a lot to Dorcas Bentu.
I would say that having the parents that I have who were Christians, well, my father is late, but my mom is still alive. My father was a lay reader in the Anglican church, and my mother also went to a Bible school somewhere in Kaduna State. And that kind of formed the foundation for my Christian belief today. And when I got to secondary school, I had one of my British teachers who was a missionary in Nigeria back then, Miss Patricia Teal. And she mentored me. She taught me literature and English language, and Bible knowledge.
Dorcas Bentu is the founder of the Christmas Village, one of Plateau State's cherished events with the objective of bringing families together to celebrate and create lasting memories of the birth of Jesus Christ. Bentu never loses an iota of excitement in the annual rehash of the birth of Jesus Christ at her cultural center. She says she has faced lots of temptation, even from her youth. The saving grace has been the morals and values inculcated in her from childhood.
I was returning from the UK one time. I was quite young at that time. I think I was between 21 and 22 years old, and I was flying in from Heathrow to Kano Airport, and I sat down next to this great society man, you know, obviously a very, very rich man, and we chatted all the way through the flight from London. And just when we were like an hour to landing, and this man, the whole conversation, he changed it. And it was like, oh, you know, I am so and so, I have a lot of money, you don't need to go to Jos tonight, I have a guest house and you can stay there and blah, blah, blah. You know, the normal thing that's thrown at, you know, at girls or women, you know. And I looked at, to be honest with you, it was challenging. It was challenging, you know. And I could have done it, and nobody would have known. But then I thought twice. First of all, the discipline that my parents, you know, put in us when we were growing up. And I asked myself certain questions. You can do this and nobody would know. But how would you live with your conscience after this? And of course, when we dropped in Kano, I just picked an airport taxi and it brought me to Jos. But I must say that it was quite tempting.
That's probably an experience some ladies of this age would fall for. But Bento advises anyone who believes in decency of character to keep at it. And how about workplace temptation?
Jobs or contracts come in, there's always that temptation for you to inflate, you know, the figures, or play around with financial situations, you know, for your own benefit, you know. Quite tempting, quite tempting.
There is no real alternative to a life of integrity, Bento says. But who is she in the eyes of others?
When we met, it was a kindred spirit. The Native Americans use the word kindred spirit for people who have similar totems, similar mindset, similar flow, similar vibes. And our friendship has blossomed over 20 years and counting.
You always have people who will say, okay, put this into the budget so that we can take care of ourselves. I mean, it's a common thing within our society, and she goes, hey, I will never forget this. One day she said to me, there's certain monies that you just need to learn how to walk away from, because life itself is not about money.
She closes it all with a piece of advice to those who want to maintain a life of integrity.
Believe in yourself, and like my father will always say, always do the right thing. When you come to a traffic light and it shows you red, do you stop or do you just zoom up because nobody is watching? Integrity, really, is who you are when nobody is watching. So if you do the right thing, then you are a man or woman of integrity.